Hey guys, today's the day, the long-awaited shower build video for the outdoor portable shower that I built myself because I'm cheap and I'd rather do it myself than pay for a fully built thing. No shade on Yakima or Thule and any of the product they built. The wrench kit, they've all got great products. I just wanted to do things a little bit more my way. I didn't want to have to deal with pressurizing a compartment or with minimal water storage. I wanted a lot of water storage and a simple turn on the switch and go kind of mechanism. And some of you might know my full-time job is called exterior cleaning for the things I do. But in this industry, we use what's called a 12-volt soft wash pump. And there's different sizes and different models, and they're capable of putting out different amounts of water. So this one is from Delavan Fluid Power, and it's a 5 gallon per minute soft wash pump. But it doesn't have to be used for soft wash. It could be used for anything. I'm not sure what the retail is. It might be $200. I'm not sure. But I had it lying around from when I was still using electric pumps on my rig. Now I'm using gas pumps, and so that's a kind of a backup option. But it's been a backup for so long that I wanted to repurpose it. This is a 1/2 inch soft wash hose from Rampage Hoses. Rampage has wonderful hoses. I've used them for almost everything I use. You can see my rig over here. Almost every single thing on there is a Rampage hose. Over here we have a 3/4 inch Rampage hose. And then I have typical soft wash fitting. Soft wash fittings up here. So let's start from the top down. You can see it came from a Widow Rust product. Now it just holds water. At the top, I put on a banjo bulkhead fitting. I believe this is a 3/4 inch. And then I used an adapter to go from this to a garden hose fitting. And you can get these quick release fittings from MTM Hydro, which is one of my favorite brands for quick connections when it comes to chemicals, because it handles everything including bleach and it doesn't rust. So these are stainless steel garden hose fittings, and I use these for everything including my rig and on my house as well. But it allows me to quickly hook up the garden hose without having to thread it on every time. Moving down to the bottom, we have typical garden hose fittings right here with a little shutoff valve. And then this is an adapter from a garden hose fitting to a male pipe thread fitting. You use pipe thread fitting for most things. Here's a worm gear clamp to hold the hose onto the barb that sticks out of this pipe thread fitting. This hose runs up and back through. It comes out on this side, and it's connected to the Delavan pump right here. Same thing. We've got a pipe thread fitting, and I just put a coupler on there, and that coupler allows me to put it on this quick release fitting, because these fittings going into the pump are a little push seal. They're not threaded in, which is fine. Sometimes they make threaded models. I just happened to buy this from a guy when I first got started, and it was a press fit fitting. The switch itself actually came off of my old pressure washer, that I use for work. I upgraded my pressure washer to an electric start, and it had a key as opposed to this little knob. And so I was able to take off this knob and repurpose it for this. All I did was I spliced it to a bullet connector, and then I used heat shrink, which is a 3-in-1 heat shrink ratio from Wirefly. You can get that on Amazon. And heat shrunk it to the bullet connector, and that allows me to plug it in. What I did was I just spliced the 12-volt positive connection, so that's why these are both red. It's because it basically is in between the 12-volt connection of the pump to the battery. And so you can see right here, this red goes to the switch, and this red goes to the pump. And so when I turn it on, it allows power from the battery to the pump, and that builds up the pressure and outputs the water. Moving down, we have this Milwaukee 12-volt power from 18, because I use the Milwaukee M18 for almost all of my tools. And so this is a power converter with a step down and a cooling unit, just so that whatever application you're using doesn't overheat or drain the batteries that you have. Also, we have a fuse, inline fuse, to make sure that the battery does not blow because of overuse or overdraw. If you know electrical, then if you don't have a fuse or a cooling fan box, I'm not sure the exact name, but a cooling unit, then you can definitely kill your battery. And anybody who has Milwaukee M18 batteries knows they're not cheap. So, like I said, I have the M18 conversion stepped down to a 12 volt, which allows me to run a 12 volt pump off of an M18 battery, and I have that here, and I'm going to demonstrate for you. Milwaukee XC 5.0, which is a 5 amp hour battery, going to a 12 volt. And moving to the end of the connection off of this 1/2 inch, I have an old shower head that I had just from when I did handyman repairs, and this is also worm gear clamped on. It's just got a 1/2 inch hose barb in there, and then a 1/2 inch male pipe thread, and the shower head just threads onto it. It's got a little adjustment which adjusts the fan of the shower a little bit, but I think it's slightly more or slightly less pressure. This is actually a little overflow port. It actually used to be the draw tube for this chemical container, and so if you put a 3/8 hose on there, you could draw chemical out from the bottom of this pump, and that little PVC connection is still there. But the nice thing is when this fills up and it overflows, it kind of shoots out of here like a little stream instead of leaking around the top, because the top isn't sealed, it's just press fit. See if I can show you how that works. So it's just press fit. Oh, and I forgot to add, with this banjo fitting, I also put a 1 inch to a 1 1/4 L fitting, just so that when I'm filling this, if I have to use it while I'm filling it, if my kids are playing outside and I just have it running for them to use as an outdoor summer play shower, then this allows the water to shoot out sideways as opposed to shooting straight down. And the issue with shooting straight down is the water flow is coming from the bottom, and if I'm having air bubbles coming from the top, then it can cause air bubbles in the pump, which can cause cavitation, and it can damage the pump if it doesn't have consistent water flow the entire time. All right, and so without further ado, let's go ahead and plug this battery in and show you how this thing works. So, simply put, like any other Milwaukee battery, slide it in, lock it in. One and done. Turn the switch, and we have water flow. Let's go ahead and water the plants at the demo. I don't know if it'll quite make it that far. Yeah, it's making it. So, maybe 10 feet of range. I'd say closer to 7 or 8, but it's pretty cool how strong and consistent it is. And it can rinse everyone off. We don't even really ever use 30 gallons. I don't even fill it up to the top. I typically fill up to about 25, just because it's a press fit lid. I don't want water sloshing out the top. But that being said, we only really use maybe 15 to 20 gallons a trip, just because that's enough to rinse off all 5 of us and gear. So this thing will run and run and run. And the cool thing about this 18 volt battery adapter as well is that every time I've used it, I maybe one tick of the 4 indicator lights goes out, which shows that it's used about 1/4 of the battery, but for the most part, it barely even takes a bite out of the battery power, which is awesome. Let me shut this off real quick. So, one thing I forgot to point out in the beginning is this little overflow valve happens to fit perfectly with this little adjustment handle. And so what I do is, because I don't have a shut-off valve on here, the water would just leak out if I didn't do this. So it's kind of pretty up here, and so gravity does this trick and just holds the water from leaking out in the truck when I'm transporting. I probably could have a little bit better of a storage system on this hose, and if I need to, I can always pull this out. And it's nice because I've got about somewhere between 5 and 8 feet of hose that I can use just to rinse off an abundance of things between family members, gear, whatever else, without having to get it all over the truck. but it's a truck, so I don't really mind it getting wet. But if I ever needed to, I can pull it all the way out here for whatever reason. But because it's only 8 feet, I'm not too stressed on finding a storage solution for the hose. But if I ever did have a longer hose, and in my prototyping stage, I definitely had a longer hose for the 3/4 inch Rampage hose back here, the supply hose. And I think I had like 20 feet, and it was a bit obnoxious because it just kind of stayed wrapped around this thing, and it was just one more thing to manage, and it just wasn't really necessary. So I took that off and decided to just use this little, I want to say 5 feet of hose, this little 3/4 inch Rampage hose, supply hose, and it's been phenomenal. So like I said, 3/4 inch supply hose, 1/2 inch feed from the pump to the shower head, and it's been fantastic. One thing I've learned in this industry with soft washing is the more supply you have, the better flow you'll have at the delivery point. If you have a smaller supply hose, you'll have what's called a bottleneck, and it basically is trying to go to a bigger source, but you can't really do much with it because you can only pull so much. So if I was only pulling a 1/2 inch of hose, it wouldn't be able to fill that 3/4 inch hose the way that I wanted it to distribute. Maybe not so much with this little shower head because it's not delivering a lot of flow, but definitely when I'm doing my work, I have to have bigger to smaller to allow more flow so that I have consistent flow. So that is pretty much it. It's pretty simple, but if you don't know what you're doing, it can be a little complicated. My outdoor shower build. Thank you for tuning in. Like I said before, if you want to see more of this, please like, follow, comment, subscribe, and I would love to hear your thoughts and your hate if you have it. Whatever you want to send my way, I can always learn from it and grow from it. So thank you again for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.